Okay, everyone, I think we are live. I'll just wait for this to queue up here. Yeah, we're live. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Yissel Missile Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today we will be finishing the book of Coral Castle by Rusty McClure and Jack Heffron. We have chapter 8 to go over and the epilogue, which is only 2 pages. So we got a total of about 20 pages with some images, and I will be reading along here. We will get to the end of this book, and then after that, I have a few lithographed postcards that I will show, along with unsealing some of these pamphlets here. And maybe we'll dive into one of them today, but we'll at least look at them. So today is chapter 8 and the epilogue, and chapter 8 is titled A Tour of the Castle. And I see that we have a few viewers and listeners here already. Thank you, Jay Wild, for being here. And Big Island Beach, I know you were here earlier. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get this slideshow going. And we will begin. All right. So, Chapter 8, A Tour of the Castle. Coral Castle is open 7 days a week for tourists to visit and admire. Though it remains largely as Ed left it, a tour today is far different from one you would have taken when he was alive. Ed's castle originally sat on 10 acres. The property now has 3. Traffic zooms along US 1, the Dixie Highway, not more than 30 feet from the outer wall of the castle. The neighborhood has grown into a busy commercial district of strip malls, gas stations, and chain restaurants. Apartment complexes loom nearby. The typical visitor today first notices the stunning incongruity between the castle's sculpted stone, like some ancient fortress, and the buzz of modern life around it. The visitor pulls off the bustling highway and parks in a wide, black-topped lot next to an orange-roofed gift shop and restaurant that also houses the admissions window. Of course, the parking lot and the shop did not exist during Ed's life. To evoke charm of a tour conducted by Ed himself, the castle now features audio stations at which a voice claiming to be Ed in an Eastern European accent offers information as Ed might have given it. The visitor proceeds up a path past trenches from which Ed excavated the rock he used to build the parts of the castle added after the move to Homestead. I'm going to take a break from reading here and just comment on that before the tour, they did have a little sit-down area with a TV screen where they played a video, like a mini documentary showcasing everything. And then after that was done, the tour guide brought us around the entire property and talked about every specific thing. And this chapter is actually going into every specific thing that Ed built and put on the location. So just a heads up on that. But let's continue. In Ed's day, a visitor first passed a small sign carved into 3 feet high coral rock that said, "Admission, 10 cents. The sign is sculpted to resemble a 5-pointed star. That sign still stands outside the castle. Above the stone doorway to the castle, Ed carved the word entrance. Next to the doorway, he carved a sign to tell visitors, "You will be seeing unusual accomplishment." Truer words have never been carved in stone. The 3-ton gate. The first piece on the tour is the 3-ton gate, a flat triangle-shaped stone balanced on a car axle. Despite its enormous weight, it moves easily and looks like a turnstile from the Flintstones. Ed had a gift, to say the least, for finding the center of huge stones and balancing them so that they swiveled with the slightest touch. Even after so many decades, the stone still moves freely. And the question still lingers. How is he able to put such a stone in place and balance it on a small axle? Some believe that the stone directs magnetic energy. A tour guide today will offer to put a visitor to a test to prove the point. A visitor is asked to hold out an arm, and the guide presses down on it, obviously unable to push the arm down. The guide then shifts the angle of the stone and presses again, and the visitor's raised arm to show that the arm now drops easily. The experiment is designed to prove the power of harnessed magnetic energy, which some people believe Ed used to lift and place his massive stones. Some visitors are stunned by the exercise. Others remain skeptical. Now I'm going to take another break from reading here and mention that this didn't happen on my tour back in 2023. And I'm actually going to reread that paragraph because it's actually pretty interesting what they demonstrated here. Some believe that the stone directs magnetic energy. A tour guide today will offer to put a visitor to a test to prove the point. The visitor is asked to hold out an arm, and the guide presses down on it, obviously unable to push the arm down. The guide then shifts the angle of the stone and presses again on the visitor's raised arm to show that the arm now drops easily. The experiment is designed to prove the power of the harnessed magnetic energy, which some people believe Ed used to lift and place the massive stones. Some visitors are stunned by the exercise, others remain skeptical. And again, we didn't have that experience on our tour, and there's a few photographs here I'm going to show briefly. Just the 10 cents admission stone with the 5-pointed star. As well as the 3-ton gate, which I don't even think we interacted with that at all. So they might have changed a few things on the tour since this book was published. But yeah. Alright, we are going to continue. Rock Gate. During his lifetime, Ed called his masterpiece Rock Gate, or Rock Gate Park, a name that drew attention to one of the most baffling features of the place. At the rear of the castle stands a 9-ton gate, approximately 80 inches wide by 92 inches tall by 21 inches thick. This massive stone doesn't simply stand, it's a perfectly hung door, in which Ed's lifetime could be turned with the push of a single finger. Somehow Ed found the exact center of the rock, bored a hole in the slab, and pushed a metal rod through its core. Then he balanced that rod on ball bearings from an old Model T Ford so precisely that the rock gate would spin when pushed by a single finger. The 9-ton stone was set within a 1/4-inch clearance of the door frame by one tiny man. The bearings beneath the shaft rested on a pie-shaped stone that should have crumbled under those 9 tons and the rotating torque. The same stone that decades after Ed's death, the University of Florida Geology Department analyzed and found to be of, quote, unknown origin, unquote. The gate worked with incredible efficiency until 1986, when its bearings finally rusted out. Resetting the gate required a 6-man team of engineers who brought with them a 20-ton crane and a laser beam. I'll reread that. The gate worked with incredible efficiency until 1986, when its bearings finally rusted out. Resetting the gate required a 6-man team of engineers who brought with them a 20-ton crane and a laser beam. In 5 days, they finished the job. The gate, however, did not spin as easily as it had in Ed's time. The engineering team's handiwork did not last. The gate today no longer spins at all. Did Ed know how to tap into the mythic electromagnetic grid and used some telluric power to set the giant gate. According to an unattributed article on the internet, quote, people who are sensitive to electromagnetic energy fields will sometimes report headaches while standing inside the archway of the 9-ton swinging gate door, thought to be over a vortex and a major grid point of the planet, end quote. The obelisk. Near a corner of the castle courtyard stands a 28-ton, 40-foot-tall obelisk, one of the castle's largest pieces and one of the most photographed. The obelisk features a 5-pointed star at the top, 16 feet taller than the tallest rock structures at Stonehenge. It was the first large piece Ed made when he began building in 1923. Through the years, the obelisk has become symbolic of the castle itself. People often call the star on top a Latvian star, but research shows that this is not the cause. Instead, it suggests Ed's early interest in astronomy, which would become one of the main themes of the castle through planet sculptures and crescent moons and a towering Polaris telescope. Next is the well. Not far from the 9-ton gate, Ed tapped into the water table and created a well. Again, how he managed to do this, no one knows. He somehow dug 6 feet into the ground, much of which was made of coral rock. Locals like to say, quote, around here, if you want to plant a tree, you need a stick of dynamite, end quote. In some places in South Florida, the oolitic limestone runs 4,000 feet deep. It's unlikely Ed used dynamite or even a jackhammer. He was able to locate a shallow spot on his property, perhaps by using a dowsing rod, and drill into it using his primitive tools to create his well. He then chiseled steps so that he could walk down and place jars of food in the cool water for storage. To protect children from falling into the well, he built a low fence around it and carved a round stone that he rolled across the top of the stairway. Was the well merely a practical necessity built through Ed's ingenious skills, or does it speak to deeper mysteries? One's tied to electromagnetic theories. Some theorize that Ed drew more than fresh water from the well. They believe he also drew from it the electromagnetic power that helped him hoist and place his enormous rocks. Interesting. Next is the tower. The tower in the southwest corner speaks to the mysteries of Ed's construction method, as well as to the mysteries of the man. Ed lived and worked in the tower, and these areas were not included on the tours when he was alive. His living quarters on the second floor were strictly off limits. And I believe that it is the same case now, because my tour in 2023 was very blocked off from the second story there, because I didn't get to look at that. All right, let's continue. And hey, Beyond the Box, I see you there. Ed created the tower using blocks that weigh from 4 to 9 tons, set in place and connected with cement. The roof is made of 30 one-ton blocks, so that's 30 of them, 1 ton each. In all, the tower weighs 243 tons. Ed lived on the second floor, accessible by a rock stairway that was carved from a single stone. Much is made of the fact that there are 16 steps on the stairway, which is seen as yet another homage to his Sweet 16. Given Ed's obvious attention to detail, it's easy to assume that the number of steps is no coincidence. The bedroom area is as unique as its inhabitant. The bed is suspended from the ceiling by chains attached to a small pulley, which Ed adjusted according to how high or low he wanted to sleep. He also rigged the system so that he could sleep at various angles. He likely slept at as much as a 40-degree angle to relieve breathing problems that plagued him for much of his adult life. Perhaps the tuberculosis that he supposedly cured during his first years in Florida. The ability to hoist the bed to the ceiling also gave him more room in the small area when he wasn't using the bed, which was made from a few boards wrapped in burlap. More of the tower's mysteries reside on its first floor, where Ed stored his tools and equipment. Guides at the castle have claimed that some of the equipment was stolen soon after Ed died. Pieces that remain are not, at first glance, particularly impressive. The tools he made from old car parts are now coated with rust. It's a motley collection of chisels, blocks, wedges, a couple of pulleys, metal cords, copper wires, and the long steel poles he used to pry up the stones. Next is the radio. The tower also contains Ed's radio, which he built from copper wire and mason jars. He used that radio to keep in touch with the world. Some say that his magnetricity amped receiver, and that's one word, dashed, magnetricity amped receiver, was powerful enough to grab signals from as far away as his Latvian homeland. That's a large claim there. Given that he had only a fourth grade education, Ed must have taught himself the principles of radio during the era when it was still a breakthrough technology. According to reports, he built his crystal set, or perhaps an earlier version of it, as early as the late 1920s, when there was very little programming to be pulled from the sky. I'm going to take a break from reading here again and just mention that today's radio towers have very low range, but it's not that wide. It's not going to go halfway across the world like that. The largest I've seen, which is also, I think it's bouncing from tower to tower, I was able to listen to WGN from Chicago in Nashville. So the signal strength depends on whatever current technology we have for radio. I don't know if it's been limited since Ed's time. If Ed was able to build this himself and broadcast all the way to Latvia from Florida, that's really impressive. And I'd really like to find more information on that, but I don't know if we ever will. Alright, I'm going to continue here. Next is the generator. Near the radio in Ed's tool shop stands what is perhaps the centerpiece of his equipment. It doesn't look all that impressive, just a rusted round flywheel with metal teeth, a metal clover leaf inside the outer circle of the gear, and a handle for turning the gear. But Ed's extensive experiments with electromagnetism have sparked belief that the little AC generator was the source of much more than basic electricity for Ed's home. Some people contend that Ed placed magnets on either side of the rotating gear wheel through an ingenious and, to this day, unknown understanding of magnetic fields. These magnets somehow enabled him to bounce electrical current back and forth, creating what amounted to a perpetual motion machine of limitless energy. He refers very clearly and directly to a, quote, perpetual motion machine, end quote, in the booklets he published and in advertisements in the Miami newspapers. Somewhat ironically, Ed drew next to no attention after making such a claim. When the man who always kept his work secret finally did come out with a bold public statement, he was ignored. Readers probably thought he was crazy to talk about a device that sounded like something from a science fiction novel. Or maybe they just didn't understand what he was trying to say. When Ed wrote about his experiments with electromagnetism, his lack of a formal education and primitive grasp of written English made his writing difficult to comprehend. Though most formally educated scientists have given his ideas little regard, some theorists do think the generator provided the power Ed needed to lift and place his rocks. and that solving the secret of the generator would solve the secret of how the castle was built. In the booklet Magnetic Current, Ed explains, quote, "Now about the generator. In the first place, all currents are alternating." I apologize. I gotta clear my throat here. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Let's continue. In the book, Look at Magnetic Current, Ed explains, quote, "Now about the generator. In the first place, all currents are alternating. To get direct currents, we have to use a commutator. Transformers and generators of any description are making the currents in the same way by filling the coil's iron core with magnets and letting the iron core push them out and into the coil. Connect the battery with the electric current, or the connect the battery with the electric magnet." These words are like really disjointed at times. I'm sorry. Quote, "It will be a field magnet now. Put the 3-inch coil between the iron prongs and take it out. Do it fast. Repeat it. Then you will have a steady light in the light bulb. Now you and the field magnet are a generator. Suppose you had a wheel and many coils around the wheel turning. Then you would be making all kinds of light." Unquote. Along with making all kinds of light, of course, there is the suggestion that one could use the power from the generator for other purposes as well, perhaps even to lift rocks weighing thousands of pounds. Next is 3 reading chairs. Next, the visitor sees 3 rocking chairs that, despite their weight, still rock with little exertion, a convincing display of Ed's mastery at carving stone. Coral rock has a brittle, pocketed surface that is difficult to sculpt into smooth lines, but Ed's shapes still look as crisp as when he made them more than 70 years ago. Ed placed the chairs at distinct angles so that the sun would be positioned over his shoulder in the early morning, at midday, and late in the day so he could read. The chairs display an ingenious use of natural light, though it's easy to conclude he also enjoyed the stunt of it, a different chair for various times of the day. Ed often posed for pictures in these chairs. Visitors will be surprised to find that the chairs, despite their rough texture, are quite comfortable. And just to mention, we didn't have access to sit in these chairs. It was off limits when we went in 2023. Next up is the Florida table. One of the most picturesque carvings in the castle, this 20-foot long table is shaped like the state of Florida and is surrounded by 10 rocking chairs set low to the ground. Ed carved a round bowl into the rock to suggest Lake Okeechobee, which is always visible on state maps. He smoothed cement over the inner surface of the bowl so that it could hold water. Coral rock is porous and the water otherwise would drain away. In talking about this piece, Ed would suggest that someday the governor of Florida might want to use the table to meet with other important political people. The table, which was made in Florida City and appears prominently in the 1932 advertisement discussed in Chapter 4, is the only piece with a distinctly local flavor. It seems to have been made expressly for the tourist trade rather than to display his love of science, nature, or his Sweet 16. Those who believe that Ed was not actively seeking interest from tourists, even in the early years of the castle, have a difficult time explaining the Florida table, which seems to prove that Ed saw the castle as a tourist attraction right from the start. Next up is the telescope. Almost as large as the obelisk and perhaps even more impressive, the Polaris telescope, which stands 25 feet high and weighs 20 tons, is located just beyond the castle's outer wall. The telescope is not, strictly speaking, a telescope at all. It contains no reflecting or refracting mirrors and cannot amplify one's view of heavenly bodies. Instead, it functions as a viewing port. It has a carved round hole at its top with crossed wires, like a gun sight, inside the hole. On the inside of one of the castle's outer walls, Ed carved a spy hole with similar crossed wires. Placing one's eye to the hole and centering on the crossed wires in the round hole at the top of the towering telescope, one can see the North Star every night of the year. The North Star moves along the circle's 4 quadrants as the seasons of the year change. The telescope and other castle features showcase this modestly educated man's knowledge and fascination with astronomy. It is often mentioned by theorists who claim that Ed's preoccupation with all things celestial suggests Ed was himself an alien or somehow had learned of the advanced technologies brought here during an alien visitation. Next is the North Wall. After the telescope, the visitor goes to the North Wall, one of Ed's most enormous pieces. The wall is made up of 3 stones that stand 8 feet high. The center of the stone weighs 30 tons, making it the heaviest part of the castle. Ed topped this stone with 2 smaller ones placed perpendicular to the wall. A larger stone that runs parallel and acts as the base for a chevron or gable-shaped stone. The crown, according to Latvian translator Inga Saiventa, is a Latvian symbol of the sky. Despite what has been written about the castle's many allusions to Latvia, the North Wall's crown is one of only a few authentically Latvian items in the structure. And even with this symbol, there is disagreement as to what Ed meant by it. Waiting for Agnes author Joe Bullard sees an architectural allusion to the north wall of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Khufu, which has a gabled roof that looks like the shape on top of Coral Castle's north wall. Quote, Ed was saying, look at this 30-ton stone, unquote, Bullard explains. Quote, he was telling you that the secret of the pyramids is inside this place. He was saying, I understand the secret. He just saw that configuration of stones and copied it. The beautiful thing about it is it's in the north wall of the King's Chamber. Ed placed it on his north wall. He's just saying that he copied it to show he knows the secret to how these places were built, unquote. And before we move on, I do have a picture here in the book to show. Oh, that's cool, Jay Wild. He says he found The Harmonic Conquest of Space by Bruce Cathy. And he's going to read it soon. And hey, Jason H., good to see you. So another picture in the book here we have is of the North Wall. And you could see the striations too on the stone's neck on each side of this 30-ton stone in the center. And I also have pictures of it in the slideshow, so you've probably seen it a few times by now. But we will now continue reading. Next up is the Moon Fountain. In front of the north wall stands what is called the Moon Fountain, though it's not truly a fountain in that no water pours from it. Instead, it is a pool lined with cement to retain water. The center, circular piece features an undulating interior surface that is amazingly smooth and precise, especially considering the primitive tools Ed used. A 6-pointed star graces the middle of the pool, adding yet another symbol from astronomy to the piece. The Coral Castle Tour pamphlet states that, quote, Ed used this part as a fish pond, end quote, keeping it full by pumping water from the well. Quote, he usually had fish and hyacinths in the pond and expected visitors to stop and look at his pond, end quote. Now it functions as a wishing well, glistening with the coins hopeful tourists drop into it. On two sides of the full moon pond rise two large crescents, which symbolize the first quarter and the last quarter moons. The mix of power and delicacy in the moon fountain make it one of the most beautiful pieces in the castle. Next up is the throne and the throne room. The first piece Ed built back in Florida City was his chair, which he called his throne. It was an important symbol, one that proclaimed him king of the castle. The throne room itself is made up of a number of chairs which, like everything in the castle, are made of coral rock. The most prominent chair is Ed's, which in size and weight is surely fit for a king and indicates that Ed truly believed a man's home is his castle, and that the man of the house definitely is in charge. Next to it stands a smaller chair for his Sweet 16, which also indicates his sense of hierarchy. A man should create a place of honor for his woman, but she should remain subordinate to him. Behind Ed's throne stands a smaller chair with a notably rougher texture. Ed created this one for his mother-in-law and hoped that its uncomfortable nature would shorten her visits. No doubt Ed enjoyed the laughter sparked by this little joke. It is one of the few pieces designed just for that purpose. The love seat in the throne room is one of the most unusual pieces in the castle, and also one that sheds light on Ed's way of thinking. The love seat features two chairs that face each other side by side, carved out of a single rock. Ed believed it would be useful when the couple quarreled. Having to face each other, they would talk and resolve their differences, and then would kiss and make up. Perhaps the most widely photographed area of the castle, the throne room is backed by three large planets, Mars, Saturn, and a crescent moon. According to the official tour pamphlet, Ed called the moon figure, quote, the crescent of the east, end quote. These eye-catching shapes have drawn curious visitors to the castle since Ed first created them. Ed allegedly believed that life existed on Mars, and to symbolize that conviction, he planted a palmetto tree in the stone. Throughout the years, thousands of people have posed for a photo while curled in the curve of the moon. During Ed's time, and even through the years when the Levin family owned the castle, a visitor would climb a metal ladder on the east wall behind the crescent and slide easily into the piece for a photograph. Next up is the sun couch. Near the throne room area, Ed created a flat circular bed known as the sun couch. The sun couch swivels on a brake drum so that Ed could face the sun directly at various times of the day. Joe Bullard and others believe, as stated earlier, that Ed may have used this couch to lie in the sun as a treatment for his tuberculosis, treatment that also included a kind of magnetic therapy. Bullard further states that he was told by longtime resident J.T. Bullard that a neighbor saw Ed giving himself this treatment while lying under the sun couch. No proof of such activity exists. And I have more photographs from the book here, so I will show those now. First one is the sun couch. Which also looks like he can adjust his positioning throughout the day. Next is the bathtub and the bedroom. So this is the bathtub in this picture. And then the bedroom You could see some resemblance of beds there. It's pretty cool. And we will continue reading here. Okay. Next up is the bathroom and the bedroom. Continuing along the eastern wall, the visitor finds Ed's bathroom, complete with a tub lined with cement to retain water. Ed would fill the tub with water from the well and then allow the Florida sun to warm the water for a bath later in the day. Visitors tend to notice the small size of the tub, which does not seem large enough to accommodate a man, but we recall that Ed was a little guy. On the wall above the tub, Ed has carved yet another six-pointed star. I just checked if that was in the picture. It's not. Next to the bathroom, Ed furnished a bedroom for his family. He created a bed for himself and one for his wife. He built two smaller beds for their children, along with a crib that rocks. Next is the Repentance Corner. The most disturbing element of Coral Castle, Repentance Corner, provides a somewhat frightening look into the mind of Ed Leedskalnin. In this corner, Ed carved two shapes that looked like upside-down exclamation points. When a child misbehaved, his or her head would be put through that round opening at the top and locked in with a piece of wood. Ed made a seat for himself, and with the child firmly locked into what amounted to a stockade, Ed would lecture them about their transgressions. He also made one for his wife, for when she misbehaved. She too would be punished and would be lectured about what she had done wrong. Repentance Corner clearly shows that Ed saw himself as lord of the manor, and that as such, he was entitled to punish other family members for their shortcomings. Next is Feast of Love table. Not far from the family stockade, he placed a 5,000-pound heart-shaped table as a daily sign of his love for his sweet 16. He carved a hole in the center of the table where he planted an ixora, and this word is spelled Ixora, which would ensure his wife would have flowers every day. He told his visitors that men are sometimes thoughtless and forgetful, and he didn't want to disappoint his wife. Ripley's Believe It or Not declared the table the largest valentine in the world. All right, and next we have the Grotto of the Three Bears. This area was designed to be the children's playground. It featured 3 little beds and 3 little chairs, a stool, and a porridge bowl. These pieces all allude to the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Ed could have known the tale from his own childhood, and it may have been one of his favorites. No record remains of why he chose this tale among all the others. It shows both Ed's childlike nature as well as his love for children. Visitors to the castle while Ed was alive are unanimous in saying Ed was especially kind to children and may have felt more comfortable around them than around adults. Alright, now we just have pictures left for this chapter, which I will show and explain. So first we have the Repentance Corner. And I guess he had it so that people would stand there. His family would stand there. Put their heads in the holes and be lectured. This next photo is a 2-page spread. And it looks to be the entrance of where you go through, you ring the doorbell. The bell that's up at the top there, to let him know that you're there. And you have to ring it twice. No more, no less. Here's a map of Latvia. You can see Lithuania, Belarus, the Russian Federation, and Estonia bordering Latvia there. Along with the Baltic Sea. And what's the Gulf there? The Gulf. I want to say it says the Gulf of Riga. And then we have an illustration of an overhead of Coral Castle. Not completely overhead, but you could see the layout of the entire place here. And I'm trying to get it to focus. There we go. So I guess really to explain this here. Let's see if I can do this. We entered right around here. Like, this is the entrance by the gift shop. And then we walked around to the left, came around over here. And, like, it wasn't all at once. Like, we stopped at different places along the way. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get this to focus again. But you get a pretty good idea of what the layout is here. It's like literally in a square. There we go. All right. And next photo is just an overhead map of South Florida. So you can see Coral Castle is further down Route 1. You can get there from Miami. All right, now we're on to the epilogue, which is just on these 2 pages here. So I'll get the slideshow going one more time. And then we will come back to full screen. And I will show you some more goodies that I got from the gift shop here. All right. Let's continue. The epilogue. Those who publish lists of oddities promote Coral Castle primarily for its place in regional history, a unique remnant of mid-20th century roadside kitsch that proliferated along Florida highways. They place Coral Castle next to dancing mermaids, monkey jungles, and glass-bottom boats. Across the American landscape and down Route 66, or Route 66, Coral Castle can be found in directories next to such oddities as Carhenge. To us, Coral Castle occupies a hybrid position in the greater world. It stands between Stonehenge, because Ed Leedskalnin set megalithic rocks on end, and the Taj Mahal, the three-dimensional wonder of the world lament to a lost love. In the classic film Field of Dreams, Ray Kinsella follows a whispering voice that tells him, quote, "If you build it, they will come," end quote. And that's a Mandela effect, by the way. Quote, "If you build it, they will come," end quote. And so he builds a baseball diamond in his cornfield. Edward Leedskalnin told many of his visitors that he had built it so that she would come to one of the world's most unusual and mysterious structures. He built it. She never came. This Gatsby-esque character's lament might have had F. Scott Fitzgerald revving up his pen. However intriguing the Agnes Scuff's explanation, the bigger mystery remains how this underwhelming individual did it. What lies beneath this saga of lost love might have provided grist for Verne and Clancy. Though Ed's Nautilus was real, his Red October more potent than Stealth Doors. Coral Castle is so authentic, it is on the National Historic Registry. It is so potentially potent, it would pull Ed alongside Newton, Einstein, and Tesla. That no one really witnessed the one-man engineer working, that he seemingly used only basic technology, that he never explained the meaning of the castle's remarkable design to anyone, that this eccentric scientist took his secrets to the grave, have all provided a mosaic of theories as colorful as many personalities who are drawn to Homestead, Florida. How, then, did he do it? The questions resonate. We believe there remains more to this castle than meets the eye. And after that, there are notes and acknowledgments. I'll read the acknowledgments, why not? Writing a book in which much of the story remains a mystery is a daunting task, one we would not have been able to accomplish without the help of a lot of generous people. Most of all, we want to thank Lisa Kramer, whose research led to many wonderful discoveries, and without whom we could not have taken the book to the level we wanted to reach. Thanks too goes to Mike Heffron, who researched the pseudoscience and found some great historic photographs. Genealogists played a key role in our research, mostly through the efforts and patient advice of Sharon DiBartolo Carmack. Her husband, James Warren, also helped with genealogical research, as did Mark Thompson and Teresa Bengal. Special thanks go to Joe Bullard, author of Waiting for Agnes, a fictionalized telling of the Leedskalnin story. He gave us insights and enthusiasm about Ed and the castle. Our appreciation goes to science writer Brian Dunning, who took time to talk with us and provide his view on the mysteries of the castle. Dawn Hugh, archives manager at the Historical Museum of Southern Florida, helped immensely with our research and for information and photographs, as did John Shipley, the head librarian of the Florida Department of the Miami-Dade Public Library. Thanks to both of you. Our knowledge of Ed's time in Latvia, as well as his Latvian heritage, was aided immensely by Igna Saiver, who also translated Koralu Pills for us. Noted writer and editor Andris Straumanis at www.latviansonline.com answered many questions and offered valuable advice. Latvian-American researcher Amanda Jatnis also helped us understand Ed's world in Latvia. The world of logging and living in the Pacific Northwest in the early 20th century was brought to life for us by Dr. Robert Ficken, John Findley at the Center for the Study of the Pacific Northwest, and Tom Robinson at Historic Photo Archive. In Homestead in Florida City, we were fortunate to meet many people who offered their memories and ideas. Ruth Campbell at the Pioneer Museum and the Historic Homestead Town Hall Museum was very generous with her time and led us to other local people, such as Vera Hackett and Charlotte Schmunk. Francis Boyson and MC Bardsley at the Tropical Everglades Visitors Association took the time to share their memories of Ed Leedskalnin, and the center's director Brian Consani Conessa generally offered advice and information about people and places in the area. Bob Jensen in the First National Bank of Homestead supplied great photos, interrupting his vacation to help us. David Payton, the bank's president, also generously gave us time and advice. Florida historians Alva Parks and Larry Wiggins gave us important information as well as contact names, helping us understand and evoke the setting for the castle. At the Coral Castle Museum, we want to thank Irene Barr, Sylvia Villafana, and John Landgrave for the help with information and photos. Our thanks to Mike Varani and Lisa Petrucci at Something Weird Video for the photos and for the quick, gracious response to our request. In making this book a book, we are grateful to Stephen Sullivan, the cover and interior designer, for his typically outstanding work, to Mark Gravy, editor par excellence, to production and copy editor Donna Poner, and to intern Adam Reiser. David Stern provided valuable assistance. The tolerance and love of our families contrast sharply with Ed's loneliness, and we appreciate their being supportive of us. Signed, Rusty McClure and Jack Heffron. So that's pretty much it. There's other books here. It says Crosley, Two Brothers and a Business Empire That Transformed the Nation, Cincinnatus, a novel, and Coral Castle, The Mystery of Ed Leedskalnin and His American Stonehenge, which is the book we just read. It says 3 related books may never have broken new ground in such a way. McClure, the grandson of Lewis Crosley, co-wrote Crosley with David Stern and Michael Banks. Published in the fall of 2006, the book was a surprise hit of the season, landing on the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Business Week bestseller lists. Crosley immediately became the definitive source on a great untold story of American business history. McClure and Jack Heffron present another great American story, that of Edward Leedskalnin and his Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida. While several self-published books had been written on the subject, and numerous websites focus on it, the author's significant research and serious journalistic approach create their subject's definitive source. Released simultaneously with Coral Castle, Cincinnatus, a novel, synthesizes elements of both of his nonfiction books. McClure teamed with David Stern to this thriller that draws upon real places and people, including the Crosley brothers and Edward Leedskalnin. So yeah, that's about it here. There's just a few other comments about these 2 novelizations, which I don't really care too much for. And then we just have one page about the authors, so I'll just read that out. Rusty McClure is the New York Times bestselling author of Crosley, Two Brothers and a Business Empire That Transformed the Nation. He has a Master of Divinity degree from Emory University and a Harvard MBA, an advisor and investor in numerous entrepreneurial projects. Rusty teaches an entrepreneurial course at his undergraduate alma mater, Ohio Wesleyan University. He is the son of Alan Crosley. McClure, the daughter of Lewis Crosley. She is the sole surviving direct descendant of the Crosley brothers. He resides with his wife and daughters in Dublin, Ohio. I don't know why I want to say Idaho. Dublin, Ohio. Rusty is also the co-author with his Crosley co-author David Stern of the novel Cincinnatus, which features several nonfiction plot elements, 3 of which are Edward Leedskalnin, his Coral Castle, and the mystery that surrounds the methodology Leedskalnin deployed. Jack Heffron has written several books of instruction for writers, as well as numerous articles for magazines, primarily on travel, sports, and popular culture. His work has been noted in the Best American Travel Writing and has won awards from the Society of Professional Journalists and Authors. His column on Cincinnati Magazine was recently chosen as the best in Ohio by the Cleveland Press Club. His short stories have appeared in many literary magazines and twice have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize. He has taught at the writers' conferences throughout the country and lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. And that is the end of this book titled Coral Castle. That's it. We just completed reading this. I'm proud of us. So, I'm going to check the comments right here. Yeah, Jay, the world would be covered in structures if we had Ed's secrets. Really fascinating. I wish he would have written them down somewhere for us to find later, but unfortunately not. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. Cool. All right, so first, I have 3 postcards I bought from the gift shop, and these are all moving postcards. You can see how 3D they are. Yeah, I think that works the best because it repeats itself after a bit. And on the back, it says, Coral Castle, Miami, established 1923. Throne room. Ed believed that every man's house was his castle and every castle should have a throne. Ed built himself a throne that weighs 5,000 pounds, rocks, and is very comfortable. Directly behind Ed's throne is one for his mother-in-law that Ed designed to be the most uncomfortable chair in the castle. Behind it and to the right are thrones for the Sweet 16 and a child. Behind and to the left is what he called his mad rocker. He said that when he and Sweet 16 quarreled, they could sit in this chair and rock. It is designed so that they would not have to look at each other, and they would rock until they made up or got hungry. They could then move over to the love seat side by side and eat from the table he carved for them. So that's all in the one corner, the far back corner. All right, next postcard that I picked up. I believe it's a vertical one. See that how it spins? Isn't that cool? That's just showing some of his work here. Some of his tools. It says Ed's perpetual motion generator. Magnets in a coil with a conductive wire create power. A complete set of 120 magnets from a Model T Ford. 5 layers of 24 U magnets, 3/8 by 3/4 thick, circa 1915 to 1927. A flywheel, ring gear, magnet clamp and screws, an engine block, copper wires, and a crank are all parts that make up Ed's amazing generator on exhibit at Coral Castle. Ed demonstrated how his generator worked for guests of Rockgate Park from 1936 to 1951. So as we read in the book also, after he passed, it's believed that some of the elements of this perpetual motion machine and generator would have been stolen. The parts are missing from it. But you can see there's still some functioning parts that are there to view. And I don't think we saw this moving or anything. It was just on display. We could look at it. And then the third and final postcard I picked up is of the Valentine table in the shape of a heart. So that gives a little 3D view. And it says Feast of Love table. This table is carved in a perfect heart with a small ixora plant in the center. Ed loved flowers but was unable to provide fresh flowers daily. Instead, he planted this ixora in the table's heart-shaped centerpiece. The Feast of Love table weighs approximately 5,000 pounds, and a replica is in Ripley's Believe It or Not. Which, if they're referring to Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, that is also in Florida. I think it's near Orlando, and I visited that once. So we're not done. We have some more here. I actually think this is going to be another part that we'll do. But these are the pamphlets that I was talking about, which I have not opened. I've been waiting to open them here right now. Yeah, you liked those postcards, Brenda? I thought they were pretty cool. Oh, wow. Wow. All right, first we have Ed's book that he published called A Book in Every Home. And this looks like it is a full-on book. But as mentioned, there's one page of his writing and then a blank page for if you disagreed with him and thought you could write better, which I think's really a power move there, in a way. Every single page has a blank page next to it. And so this is about like 30 pages long. So we'll keep this for next show. We will read this. A Book in Every Home by Ed himself. This one we could look at right now. This is called, it's a mailer that has a spot for postage on the back. But this is more of like an advertisement, like a current advertisement for Coral Castle. It says, a sculpture garden and a tribute to lost love. One tiny man obsessed with his love for a young girl labored for 28 years to build a coral rock monument to her. Incredibly, he carved and moved over 1,100 tons of rock without human assistance. Did he know the secrets of the Great Pyramid? Did he have superhuman powers? Visit the Coral Castle and discover one of the world's most incredible wonders. On the back it says, nestled between the Florida Keys and Miami is an astounding monument to one man's determination. Often referred to as America's Stonehenge, the Coral Castle has baffled scientists, engineers, and scholars since its opening in 1923. How could a 5-foot-tall, 100-pound man single-handedly carve and move such incredible amounts of coral rock? How could he make used hand tools to create a 9-ton gate so perfectly balanced it swings open with the touch of a finger? The Coral Castle has been featured in hundreds of newspaper and magazine articles, from Life magazine and Reader's Digest to In Search of and That's Incredible. The Coral Castle may be rented for private and commercial purposes, including private parties, birthdays, wedding ceremonies, and club/charity nights. Don't miss our astronomy buff and celestial evenings, or our unique psychic and Renaissance fairs. And it gives directions, a stone's throw away from exit 5 south. So that's just a nice little postcard explaining everything. Just giving a nice little rundown to get people interested and out to the castle. It's kind of a wide mailer too. This is almost like a door hanger, but it is for mailing out. So next we also have, by Ed himself, Magnetic Current. This, I also believe, will be its own show. So we'll have at least 2 more parts. And I am looking forward to reading this one, because I think this is going to tell us a lot about what went into Ed creating the castle. So I'd say we'll get through this one next week. And if we're too exhausted from reading through all this, because it probably is going to be choppy English, we'll move on to this one in 2 weeks. So each week I'm doing this on every Tuesday. And then we also have, which surprised me because it's not really connected completely. This is called Mineral, Vegetable, and Animal Life by Edward. But you see what it says here? It says Perpetual Motion Holder. Which we haven't seen something like this in the books yet, have we? And this is really, it's like 1, 2, this is like 3 full pages folded in half and not stapled in any way. So maybe we could jump into this right after Magnetic Current. So we'll put that on the list for 2 weeks from now. So we're just getting into all of Ed's own writing for next week. And we're gonna nail this entire book here. And then we're gonna probably separate for Magnetic Current, because this I think is gonna be the most interesting out of everything. Yeah, that's awesome, Jay. Yeah, Jay's saying he downloaded the PDF of this book, A Book in Every Home. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. Like, we're going to get through this fairly quickly. If we can knock it out in a half hour, which I think we will be able to, we can just jump right into Magnetic Current. And then if that's, I mean, let's see how many pages that is. It's about 20, it's 19 pages. Text is a little small, but that's fine. Still, I think this is going to be its own thing. So I'll just try to save that for another time. And then, not only that, we still have more, which I have not opened until now. Is The Enigma of Coral Castle by Ray N. Stoner. And let's see how many. So this is 45 pages. And this goes over Coral Castle. Has some nice pictures in here. Different ones from the book, along with some other ancient art here that we'll take a closer look at when we go through this. It has it has stuff about the pyramids, so we'll get into all that. So I think this is going to be its own show too. The Enigma of Coral Castle. This book's going to be on its own. Yeah. Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico. So this is just a preview of this, which I call it a pamphlet. It's a paperback. So with it being 45 pages, this is also going to be its own show. Yeah. Yeah, Jay. I mean, this looks pretty incredible. Like, look at the front cover of this. Got the Giza pyramids in there. Got stone or Coral Castle right in the center. Chaco Canyon, which I have not looked at anything in that. Chaco Canyon, Panorama, Stone, England. Also have not looked into any of that. And then that obviously is Stonehenge, which, if many of you don't know, Stonehenge was moved and recreated. So the current Stonehenge is not how it was originally seated. And I think they made it permanent. They cemented it down, or put concrete in there to hold it down. But I'm going to put Enigma of Coral Castle back in its little slipcover thing because I like to keep dust off of these materials. And that way they'll last a little longer. I take good care of my library here. But I've just been letting these sit, and I wanted to do this series for quite a long time, and now's the time. We're getting through it. So yeah, we'll end this series with this larger pamphlet, The Enigma of Coral Castle. Next week, we will do A Book in Every Home. We'll read through its entirety. The week after, we'll do Magnetic Current and Mineral, Vegetable, and Animal Life, also by Ed. And the week after that, 3 weeks from now, we will do The Enigma of Coral Castle by Ray N. Stoner. And that's not it. So, for this series, this might be it. But I do plan on doing another show on Thursday of this week to start another series. And I don't know how deep dive we'll get in with all this, but I have a book from 1974 called The Bermuda Triangle by Charles Berlitz. And this has stories about disappearing ships, planes, and people, and strange occurrences that happened in the Bermuda Triangle. And I figure this is close to Florida, and it deals with paranormal and mysteries and UFOs. So we will be starting this on Thursday. And this also has, I think, roughly 8 chapters. There's 9 chapters. It's under 200 pages. Which, if we look at the Coral Castle book we just read, this one was about 150 pages, but it also had pictures and stuff. But this Bermuda Triangle book, it also has pictures. Has some very interesting pictures. And we'll learn more about that when we get into it. But this focuses on different flying craft found in ancient cultures. It looks like the Nazca lines in Peru. So this is really covering more than the Bermuda Triangle. It's going to help us get into more of the ancient megalithic stuff, which goes right along with this Enigma of Coral Castle that we'll be doing in about 3 weeks. But I want to ramp up doing more shows here on the channel instead of just once every Tuesday and the occasional Saturday with Madness Hour, which we'll be doing another one soon. It's just tough to get that organized with more people than just myself. So we'll get to that eventually again. But Bermuda Triangle will be on Thursday. We'll start this. And I think that'll give us a way in for, like, put a foot in the door for more on this type of material, because I do have other books that I do want to get into and share with all of you, and I think this is the best way to do it, especially with people that don't have access to this type of material. It's easy to share with you here, and I'm glad that you all enjoy listening to me read. So, yeah, that's going to be about it for today. I'm glad that you all are here, and I really appreciate having you all. Look for upcoming shows, because I'll be able to start listing everything now, scheduling them ahead of time. So that's going to be really something I want to do on a more permanent basis, is letting you all know when I'll be coming on, at least a day in advance, because that way I get more of you here live. And yeah, there's always people that are watching afterwards. That's just how it is. Oh, you have a VHS of Berlitz book, J-Wild? It's 94 minutes. Nice. So that's like, what, like 90, or it's 9 years after publication. Let's see here. I'd say I'd have to watch it before, but I don't know. If it's on VHS, there might not be another copy of it, like, digitally. I'll try to look for it. It might be on YouTube. Yeah, 1974 is when it was printed. So it's actually 11 years after. If you want to get a little preview of the chapters, if it'll focus in. The Bermuda Triangle, a mystery of the air and sea, the Triangle of Disappearing Planes. I'll just read it here since it's not going in here. The Sea of Lost Ships, Someone Who Escaped, Is There a Logical Explanation? Time, Space, Warps, and Other Worlds, a suggestion from the ocean's past, The Surprises of Prehistory, The Watchers, Protectors, Raiders, and Indifferent Observers. It's pretty good material there. So, Thursday, we'll jump into that. It's just a little promo for that for Thursday. So thank you, everyone. If you haven't hit the like button, please do. Subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Share around to people who you think will be interested in any of this. Again, I make next to nothing for this channel. I do this because I enjoy doing it. It's in my field of work of video producing, so it's why I'm here. And I like sharing this content with all you, and I like digging into stuff. I do need to do more film industry related series. I'm trying to consider what I want to jump back into with the film industry and cover in this type of format. I do have books on like the original Hollywood in Chicago, and a few other books that pertain to like this type of like read along and storytelling type of thing. But once I decide on a specific movie industry thing I want to do, I'll let you know. I have some books on esoteric Hollywood, just the symbols inserted in certain movies, like symbolism of you know, the different elite groups and all that. And yeah, so I do plan on doing more content like that, and I've had a few people reach out to me about getting back to covering the film industry. So I'm not watching any movies or TV shows right now. I'm mostly on YouTube, catching up on my stuff there, and on Twitter X, and on YouTube I'm watching a lot of Archaics, which he's diving into a lot of excellent content. He just did some stuff on Apollo, And he's read a lot of older books that talk about all the way back to the beginning of civilization or known civilization. And he's cross-referenced a lot of different books together, and he presents stuff 2-3 hours at a time. It's really something else. But yeah, that's how I've been spending my time. But Thursday, be back here. I will be starting the Bermuda Triangle book, and then next Tuesday we'll continue on with Ed Leedskalnin's own writings, and that's how we'll end out this deep dive with the Coral Castle. And if I have anything else to show, I will on those shows, but anticipate 3 more for a total of 8. Yeah, and I'll be on Beyond the Box channel with Brenda. I do co-host every now and then, and we did start a new series of traveling the world, so to speak, looking at different countries and the architecture in those countries, their countries' flags, and just the layout, landscape, geology of the areas. And we started with the Balkans, so we're going to be working on that area to show everybody about what's around the world and stuff that probably a lot of people haven't seen. So that's what I'm up to these days. And yeah, again, share this around, please. It'll help the algorithm. Comment on the video afterward. That also helps the algorithm. And yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for being here. So until the next one, class dismissed.